Okay. Is that cool? Check, check, check. Is this on? Check, check, check. All right, thanks, Bill. Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming to the annual Men's Ministry Sausage Dinner. We're glad that you're here. I know that we're going to have a blessed evening. We already have, and it's going to get even better when we have guest speaker Maurice Clarett talk to us. So. But before we invite Maurice up, we do have some door prizes. That's why we create that bottleneck coming into the gym. You have to sign the back of your tickets to have a chance at a door prize. The two nice prizes are 2 Ohio State autographed footballs, autographed, of course, not by me, but by Maurice Clarett. But before we give those away, we've got golf balls. Yes! The first lucky winner of 4 golf balls, Wilson SL 9000s, is Michael Kane. Yes! Congratulations. You're a linebacker, not a golfer. The next lucky winner of 4 Wilson SL 9000 golf balls is Lucas Ryan. Lucas Ryan. Hey, come on up, Lucas. Good job, Lucas. Congratulations. One more sleeve of Wilson golf balls. We've got Ernie Cross. Ernie Cross. All right, Ernie. There you go. Now we actually have a pretty decent prize. Got a nice Ohio State long sleeve t-shirt, extra large, so it should fit most people in here. The winner of our Ohio State jersey is Max Hartline. Max Hartline? All right. Good job, Max. Thanks for coming, man. All right, and now we're going to give away our Ohio State autographed footballs. The first winner of an Ohio State autographed football is Ed Mitchell. Ed Mitchell? Ed? All right, Ed. God bless you, Ed. All right, we've got one more to give out. And the next and last winner for our drawing for a Maurice Clarett signed Ohio State football is Jake Losey. Jake Losey, there's Jake. Good job, man. Congratulations, Jake. Without further ado, I have written down here to remind everyone, please silence your cell phones. Yes, please silence your cell phones as a courtesy to everyone around you. And I'm glad I note to self. So tonight, as our guest speaker, we're excited to welcome legendary Ohio State running back Maurice Clarett. Maurice has often been called one of the greatest freshman collegiate football players to have ever played the game. Clarett started at Ohio State for one season, rushing for 1,237 yards, a school record for a freshman, and scoring 18 touchdowns, which helped the Buckeyes to a 14-0 record and the 2002 BCS National Championship. He scored the winning touchdown against the University of Miami with a 5-yard run in the second overtime in the 2003 Fiesta Bowl. He also made a key defensive play in that game, stealing the ball on the Miami 28 from Hurricane safety Sean Taylor, who was returning an interception from the end zone of a pass thrown by Craig Krenzel. Raise your hand if you remember that play. Yes, Maurice remembers that play. Maurice remembers that play. That's one of the greatest single plays in football I've ever seen. Clarett was, I missed a sentence. After that play, Ohio State kicked a field goal, giving them a 10-point lead at the time. Clarett was the first freshman to be the leading rusher on a national championship team since Amon Green of the University of Nebraska in 1995. After his great season at Ohio State, Maurice fell into a spiral of poor decisions that resulted in 3.5 years in prison, an event which actually served as a turning point in his life. Since Maurice's release in 2010, he's been committed to restoring his life and his reputation as a man who strives to live with integrity, guided by his strong Christian faith. So would you please join with me in giving a very warm Chapel Marlboro welcome to Maurice Clarett.
I got to make sure my phone is turned off too. Oh, well, I guess I started off with OH. There we go. I will tell you this, in all honesty, I've been up since about 4:45, but when I came up here and I kind of sat outside and was shaking the hands of the people, it's funny how you get to the actual event, so you feel the energy from everybody, and it kind of reminds you, like, why you're there. It kind of picks you up and encourages you. I'm sitting here playing around with the little kids, and they want autographs, and it makes me reflect back to times when I was young, and, I seen Jerry Rice for the first time, and I was, like, super excited for whatever reason, right? But, one thing I did tell you, too, I talked to Coach Trussell on the way up here, and he told me to tell everybody hello for whatever that's worth. I guess he was up here a couple years ago. But just to kind of jump into it, I'm pretty sure everybody has seen some parts of my life, be it good, be it bad, be it the ugly, be it everything. But when I sit on this stage or when I talk on the stage, I talk directly from the heart. I talk about my journey, my past, my struggles, things I've been through, things I continue to go through, but I do it all with the purpose of just wanting to be transparent, wanting to share my heart, wanting to inspire people, to let them know that, no matter what takes place in your life or what goes on at your most down moments, that it's always room for redemption. It's always room to pick yourself back up. But also, when you get picked back up, you also have to use a level of maintenance. And I'm not here to talk about the Youngstown boys story per se. I'm here just to kind of give the details of how things came about and how they played, and hopefully through the course of that, people will understand me a little bit better, and hopefully the younger kids, I see some high school basketball players, athletes in here, hopefully they'll take something from it, and you'll have a piece of my life with you. But to make a long story short, I grew up in Youngstown. For a lot of people who do know, I grew up in that mid-'90s era. And that era definitely affected my psychology or my mentality towards a lot of things. Just my mentality, how I viewed the world, how I wanted to be perceived with my friends, how I just wanted to basically be displayed as an individual. And around that time, you had a lot of murders, you had a lot of drug dealings, you had a lot of robberies and a lot of criminal activity in the neighborhood that I was in. And so I always seen myself as like wanting to be the tough guy, wanting to be the guy who stood out, wanting to be like the center of attention towards my friends. And as a result from that, I attracted everything that I basically set out to do. I got in trouble a tremendous amount as a kid. I was actually locked up in a juvenile justice center 3 times before the age of 12. And the first time I was incarcerated, I actually stole a car, went on the joyride, eventually got arrested by the police, went to the juvenile facility, and I spent 3 days in the detention center. When I spent the 3 days inside the detention center, I looked at it as a joke. I came back outside the facility, and I actually was more popular amongst my friends. My friends used to like, hey, you went to the juvenile facility, what did it look like? And they were sort of praising this level of behavior. They were actually reinforcing this ideology that, the more trouble you get into and the tough guy mentality actually encouraged me to keep on doing it. Maybe about a month after that, I actually went to a junior high skating ring. And I was actually from the south side of Youngstown. We had some other guys who were from the north side. We got into a fist fight, and I was actually sent right back to the same facility I came from. And since I came back within the 30-day window, they made me stay for 10 days this time, and 10 days seemed like an eternity to an 11-year-old kid. So I got out of there. I kind of stayed clean, kept my nose clean. My mother put me into sports. She used to take me down to the YMCA and a boys club and different things like that. She was just trying to find a place for me to basically exercise or get my energy out. And I started playing sports, started playing junior high football, was dominating a whole lot. But I still love and gravitated towards just basically wanting to be popular and wanting to be in crime or just wanting to do mischievous things for whatever they're worth. So the turning point of my childhood and eventually what kind of steered me into football and whole, I was actually breaking inside of an individual's home. This was when I was in the 8th grade going into the 9th grade. I was breaking inside an individual's home, and I was as I was inside the home, we were taking some of the possessions. That man actually woke up and he came out and he seen us in the room. He panicked. He ran down the hallway, and as he ran down the hallway for protection or to hide inside of a room, I actually got scared, ran outside of the room, and jumped out a second-story window. And essentially, that's how I got the scar on top of my head. I landed on the ground from the second-story window, knocked myself out, got back up, tripped over a fence, knocked myself out again, eventually got caught. And I had 13 staples inside my head. And that's essentially the real reason why I wear number 13, to be honest with you, right? They didn't tell you that on the 30 for 30, right? So, and I'll tell you how it came to be. So I was actually sitting inside the juvenile facility. It was maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, and there was a gentleman who changed my life. His name was Mr. Roland Smith, and Roland Smith was the local high school strength and conditioning coach. He's currently the strength and conditioning coach for YSU right now, but he had grabbed me and he said, "Maurice, man, you're messing your life up." He said, "I seen you play football. I seen you play basketball. I know your mother. I know your father. If you actually take this game serious, you can do something with yourself." And so for me, I had never seen anybody from my neighborhood go anywhere, never do anything. So a lot of what he was saying to me was so far-fetched. He was the first person to actually bring me into church, and we would go downstairs into the basement of a church called New Bethel Baptist Church in Youngstown. We would do small Bible session studies, work out of Proverbs, work out Ecclesiastics, and a lot of these words were going over my head at the time, and I just didn't understand or didn't grasp it. I was just basically trying to get out of trouble. So essentially, the judge had agreed for me to basically be placed on house arrest for a summer, and she didn't allow me to go to an inner city school. She forced me to go to a suburban school to basically go into a different environment. So I went to a place called Austintown Fitch, and in my freshman year, I was a real big kid, 5'11", 220 pounds, and I was just a young kid with a bunch of anger. I was real aggressive, I had a bunch of anger, and I wanted to prove the world wrong. So as fate would have it, I ended up earning a spot on the varsity football team. The first 3 or 4 games, I ran for a few, like 500 to 700 yards before breaking my ankle, and I started to realize that basically football can become a thing. I started to receive letters from Bowling Green and Youngstown State and Indiana University and all these places asking me to come participate in the summer camps. And this was the first time in my life that I said, man, I can get outside my neighborhood by playing football. There was nothing academic. There was nothing that I thought I had to do from a behavior standpoint. I was just basically saying if I learn how to play football, I can get outside my neighborhood. So midway through my freshman year, I transitioned over to another high school called Warren Harding. Warren Harding had obviously been sending guys to Ohio State, to Penn State, to Temple, to Texas, to USC, and all these illustrious universities. And so in saying that, I saw that I wanted to basically be in a better outfit, so I went over there to basically pursue something from a football standpoint. So I get over to Warren Harding, and the same thing takes place. I'm focused. I'm inside the weight room. I believe I can do something with football, and everything that basically I had done in my previous life, breaking in homes, stealing, and the little petty drug dealing that I was doing at the time, all that stuff was to the wayside because I was focused on the actual game of football. So 10th grade happened, 11th grade happened. I started to travel the country, see different guys in camps. And the more I traveled, the more confidence I gained because I started to see guys who had bigger names than me commercially on the internet, but when I competed against them, there was just a difference, And I set a goal with myself my 11th grade year, and I said, I didn't want to be the greatest guy in Ohio. I wanted to be the greatest guy in the world to run the football. So I busted my butt like everybody else, and essentially my senior year, I graduated with a 3.5. I did very well in the classroom, and I also won every award that you can possibly want to win. USA Today Player of the Year, high school All-American, Mr. Football, broke probably every record from a Division I standpoint, and my life was basically moving in the right direction. I'm not sure if people realize it or not, but Ohio State actually never offered me a scholarship. Excuse me. Jim Tressel became the coach. John Cooper didn't want me for whatever reason, but I was sitting inside of my high school coach's office, and I called Coach Tressel up. I said, "Hey, Coach Tress, what's going on?" He said, "Hey, Maurice, how you doing?" I said, I'm coming to Ohio State. And he said, "Well, technically, we didn't offer you a scholarship." And I said, "Watch me this year. I bet you will." So that was like very arrogant, right? So So I ended up going to Ohio State, and as I get down here, my whole focal point is like, hey, I just want to go to the NFL. I had this dream of mine, like, hey, I'll go to the NFL, life will be illustrious. I didn't care anything about me pursuing any academic path, and that was like the focal point of everything. How do you get to the NFL? And so coming through the off season, I was getting beat up a whole lot. I was playing with the scout teams, going to class, doing the bare minimum in class just to get back over to the weight room and to the Woody Hayes facility and lift the weights and jog and condition and sort of to arm my bones. And I did all that, in 2 weeks prior to the season. And I'll kind of say this just because athletes are here. You never know when your opportunity is going to come. If anybody can believe it, 2 weeks before the season, I was actually fourth on the depth chart. And I wasn't even supposed to be getting into the game. And so what actually happened was that we had a drill in practice called inside run. And the guy who was first string at the time, which was Lydell Ross, he actually went out here and he didn't feel like practicing. I knew it from the locker room. And so he acted like his ankle was hurt, and so he sat out of practice. So this pushed me up to third string today. Then the second guy, he was going inside the drill. It was like an inside run drill where guys get on the goal line and try to basically score. He kept on fumbling. And so Coach Trussell was very out of character. He got real mad. He said, can somebody get in here and run the ball? And I said, Coach, I can't wait for the opportunity. I want to go with the first group. Please put me in. So he put me in. I started doing a very good job running the football, scoring touchdowns. He said, Coach D'Antonio, who actually coaches for Michigan State now, he came up to me after practice. He said, hey, I'm going to have the coach have you run with the first team because you gave us the best look. So the second day I came back, had success. Third day I came back, had success. We had a scrimmage right before the game. And the next thing you know, I went from fourth to first in a matter of 2 weeks. So this is kind of like where I set the foundation, but this is kind of like where life gets crazy for me. So we go out to the first game. I had never been around 104,000 people. I never felt that energy. I never felt that screaming. I never felt that that thing that you get when you run up the tunnel and there's everybody watching and everybody cheering. And so when I got there, if you ever heard of a natural high, I got a natural high from running out there and just feeling the energy and the noise from the people. And it was like almost the craziest thing. Like I can feel myself getting emotional now just because like I remember that moment. And we get out to the first game, and Coach Trussell tells me, he said, hey, Maurice, I'm going to give you 3 opportunities to get this thing going, but if you don't, your life is over. We'll put somebody else in. And, yeah, as fate would have it, they put me in the game. I got out there. I was rocking and rolling. And 175 yards later and 3 touchdowns later, my life had changed. I went from Joe Blow walking on campus to this freshman sensation. I had never seen anything like it in my life. And so I went to the locker room. I knew I had a good game, and after the game, I remember coming outside the tunnel, and after doing all the media stuff and the autograph signing, I came out, outside the old stadium, and I got to the bottom of the stairs, and they used to have a fence, and you had 2 sections of the fence. You had like family members and people who work for the university, and football staff and things like that. Then you had another section where you had fans and people who want autographs. And things of that nature. And so I was signing autographs, but I remember looking out the corner of my eye, and I remember seeing my brother and my cousin and about 15 or 16 guys from my neighborhood that I didn't invite to the game. And so after we get done with the game, they come with me. They say, hey, man, Reese, we got a limo out here. We're going out to party tonight. Would you like to come out and party? And so for anybody who knew me, you can ask anybody in Ohio State history, hit them up on Twitter, Facebook, anything. I was like Mr. Drug-free, Mr. No alcohol, Mr. No pills, Mr. No marijuana, Mr. Nothing. The only thing I wanted to do was lift weights and play football. If anybody know me, I just like to lift weights, right? And so, true story, I still like to lift weights. I wake up at 4 in the morning just to lift weights for no reason, right? So we go to the party, we go to the nightclub, and I remember coming through the back door. And as we came through the back door, you had the owner of the club, you had champagne, you had bottles of liquor, you had beer, you had everybody sort of celebrating. And I remember they took us to a section where we were in the VIP. This was the first time you had miscellaneous women coming at me. You had people cheering. You had people wanting to take your pictures. And for an 18-year-old kid, I was like living a dream. This was like a fantasy to anybody to have women over you. People want to touch you. People want to be around you. And it was infectious. Excuse me. But I remember once I left the party, I went to practice that next Monday, and I remember like it was yesterday, I was doing a kickoff return drill. And I remember when I caught the ball, I remember jogging up the field, but I was more motivated to have success that weekend for the purpose of wanting to celebrate off the field than being motivated to basically be the dominant player. Y'all get me when I say that? Y'all with me? Okay, y'all with me? I just wanted to make sure y'all was with me. All right. I usually joke a lot, right? But make sure y'all with me. So the next thing I know, we go through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games, or 6 games, and Coach Trussell calls me in the office, He says, hey, Maurice, there's a problem. And I said, what's up? He says, man, you seem to have lost focus. We're having a lot of success on the football field, but you're not showing up in class. You're not basically doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're coming to practice late, and you seem to be hanging out with the wrong crowd. And so he had drew out just some obstacles that would take place once I became popular. And so in his mind, he was basically trying to just set the stage for me, give me different perspective as to what was taking place in my life. But for me, I was just a young kid having fun, entertaining my friends, my family members. So he was telling me like, hey, Maurice, you're gonna have groupies, you're gonna have leeches, you're gonna have guys who want to basically live off you, you're gonna have guys who want to get deals done with you, you're gonna have people who put you in a situation where you're violating NCAA violations. But I really didn't understand what he was saying. So we go through the season, we're winning games, and we get right before we're getting ready to play Michigan. And so he says, hey, Maurice, after practice, come in, I got to talk to you. I got to tell you about the game plan, but I also got to talk to you about something that took place. And so it took place the Michigan week. I actually got into a fist fight in downtown Columbus with some of my friends. This was the week before. And so he said, I heard about that, and the police didn't arrest you because they knew who you were. He said, but I'm telling you, can you please save yourself and separate yourself from those people? And so in my mind, I'm thinking like, man, these are my buddies, these are my homeboys, these are guys I grew up with. I'm making every excuse for these people to be involved in my life. So the next thing I know, we go through them, we beat Michigan, we go to Miami, we beat the Hurricanes in the national championship. And at that moment, I promise you, I thought that life couldn't get any better. I was on top of the world. Me and LeBron were hanging very tough. So it was crazy to see everything going on from a basketball perspective. Didn't have so much success in the football world, and to be so close to somebody was like a crazy moment. I can't even explain it. I just can feel like what it felt with around that time. And so instead of me going to football practice, I remember me going to the academic advisor, and I said, hey, Darren Meeker, I said, I'm pretty sure that you seen last season. I'm not basically going to graduate. I'm going to the NFL. Can you please help me out? And so I had researched a list of classes to take that would be basically nonsense, right? And so I actually signed up for officiating golf, officiating softball, women's studies, and African American studies, right? And in respect to all of them, those are nonsense courses. But these were the things that I signed up for because my focus had basically left what it was supposed to be. It's okay to giggle and laugh. I did it. It's all good, right? I won't lie about it. It happened in my life. I did it, right? So the next thing I know, Darren's telling me, he said, hey, Maurice, at some point you're going to have to come back and finish this stuff up. Please don't set yourself up like this. But in my mind, I said, I'm going to the NFL. So the off-season goes, we're rocking and rolling, and about 2 weeks before the season, I get a phone call that said, hey, the NCAA will be in town to investigate you. They said that they've heard some inquiries about you having NCAA violations, and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, even if they catch me with some of the things that I have done, basically I get 2 or 3 games. So I went through the NCAA process. When they sat down with me, I basically lied about everything. I act like I didn't know about any and everything, and they got tired of me. And to make a long story short, they found a bunch of violations and essentially suspended me. And for those who care to know, just to bring clarity to it, the biggest reason I got suspended, it wasn't for a car. It was actually for a cell phone, and the cell phone that basically I had since high school. And so my junior year in high school, I had a cell phone being paid for by a booster. So every month that the booster paid for the cell phone was essentially a violation. So the 12 months or the 24 months that he started paying for the cell phone bill in high school, and essentially the months there. So it just wasn't like one cell phone bill. It was just like a continual thing or whatever, right? So I got tired of it. So essentially they kicked me out of school. And when they kicked me out of school, it was like the hardest thing that happened in my life at the time. I had never been outside of a structure for the past 4 or 5 years. It was something very uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do with my time. I had no interest in going back to school. I didn't do my work in the first place. And so as a kid, I was 19 years old, I was lost, and I had created a monster inside myself from going out so much, I had went out, I was going to club every day when I was playing football. I was going to have a good time. So that was the natural thing for me to do in order for me not to feel the pain. That's when the alcohol kicked in. That's when the pill popping kicked in. That's when the marijuana kicked in. And all those things kicked in as a way for me to cope. And oftentimes, I know this is a little bit off subject, but that's why I can understand where Johnny Football is. Johnny Football may be going through something personally, and people are quick to point at him and pick at him, but you don't know how somebody copes with what's going on. He just may not understand a healthy way to sort of deal with his problems, but he seems to just be crashing or going in miscellaneous ways, right? So To make a long story short, all of that behavior kind of continued in the off season, just making reckless choices, not knowing where I'm going, having no purpose, having no desire, being very depressed, isolating myself, staying in the house for 2 or 3 days at a time, not going to lift weights, and just really the weight of the world was kind of on my shoulders, and I had nobody to talk to. I didn't have a father who I can just talk to and consult. I didn't have an uncle. I just had a bunch of fans and friends who were my age, and so all these guys want to do is party because I can go to a party and facilitate drugs and sex and alcohol. That was like the essence of it. So in 2003, I kind of woke up. Jim Brown had reached back out to me, and he said, Maurice, how about you come to California? How about you come out here, get yourself together, remove yourself from Ohio, and just basically start all over? And so I caught a plane to California with the intention of getting with Jim Brown. And for those who don't know what Jim Brown did in 2003, he had the American program, and essentially it was a program where guys went to on a daily basis to learn life skills, to become more responsible, to help a lot of criminals transition from prison, get jobs, and just basically get guys acclimated. And he was trying to pull me into that fold while I was training and while I was basically off. But what actually happened was I went to California, and basically I lost focus. I didn't hit Jim Brown up. I didn't give him a call. Initially, I ended up connecting with him later on down the road, but I called my friends and my buddies and I said, hey, man, this is LA, this is sunset, it's beaches, it's women, I want to go out here and basically have fun. And so the notion or the desire to want to have fun and hang out and party all day and party all night, those things took over. So everybody thought that I was out of football 2003, 4, and 5, training, getting better and everything, when I was actually hiding in California just because nobody cared about Maurice Clarett, the football player out there, and I didn't have to answer questions. So 2005 rolls around. This is the NFL Combine. People thought that I should be in great shape and I should run the fastest 40-yard dash and lift the most weight, but it was the total opposite. I had actually been a junkie and a partier for the last 2 years, and so I thought in the back of my mind that I could show up and put my hand down in the dirt and run as fast as I can because I had did it my whole life. Anytime it was time for me to show up with something athletic, I did it. I broke tackles, I made plays, I always pushed through things, and I thought that I would basically get this magical moment and basically run this illustrious 40-yard dash. I get down in the stands, pretty sure everybody remembers it. I run the 40-yard dash, and I run a 4.7. And all the guys who had been at the combine at that time, these guys were running 4.3s and 4.4s, and this was very slow for me. So it didn't click in my head that I wasn't prepared. I said, hey, maybe I slipped, maybe I didn't drive all the way through the line, maybe I didn't basically put my chest across the line first. I have to do something else basically to run this 40-yard dash a little bit faster. So I get down again, I run as fast as I can again, and I run a 4.8 this time, which is worse than the first time. And so I'm mad, I'm depressed. I'm like, you know what, maybe the 40-yard dash isn't for me. Maybe I'll do the L drill, these cone drills. Maybe I'll do the pass catching very well. I've been very agile with my feet. Maybe these things will kick in because it's a big moment. So I go out here, I'm beginning to kick over cones. I'm getting tired. My groin is hurting. My lower back is hurting. And those are traditionally the areas that start hurting the most when you're out of shape and you're trying to do these quick anaerobic movements. And basically, my body just started to break down. And so the coaches were yelling at me. I got frustrated. I had no level of patience. And basically, I just left the football facility, walked out the room. I walked out the stadium, went home, packed my bags, and I went to California. And as of spring 2005, I was done with football. I thought that there was no way I'd get drafted. I thought that they would look at me as a quitter. I thought that they would look at me like, hey, I don't want anything to do with him. And in my mind, I was perfectly fine with that. I wanted nothing to do with football. So the draft rolls around in April. This is April of 2005. I remember my mother was in town for whatever reason. She wasn't in town to help me celebrate with the draft because I didn't want to give out. I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I was going to get drafted. But I remember sitting down and watching with my mother. And I remember the first round going by, and I didn't realize it would affect me like this. I remember watching guys get on the stage, hold their jerseys up, smile, take pictures, their family crying. And after watching like the first 15 or 20 picks, this thing started to make me more depressed. And it made me depressed because I was seeing my failures inside of all of their successes. They were coming on the stage and living out their dreams, and I knew my name wasn't nowhere in the arena of getting called. That made me more depressed than I already was. So, in the second round, I remember just leaving. I left and I got in the car and I just started to ride around the freeway in LA. Aimlessly just riding the 405, the 10 freeway. We're just kind of riding for a few hours. And midway through the evening, I get a telephone call from Denver. And Denver had called me up. They said, hey, this is Mike Shanahan. We have the 101st pick in the third round. We would like to select you and make you a Denver Bronco. I know you would like to have got called earlier, but we're calling you. We believe in you. Basically, we want you here tomorrow on the plane to be a Denver Bronco. And so immediately, I'm pretty sure all these kids, every kid wants to go to the NFL, correct? Or NBA, NFL, correct? All the little kids, right? So I wanted to go to the NFL too. So there was an immediate sense of gratification, like, man, I've made it. I've made it to the NFL. I've lived the dream of being drafted by an NFL team. But also directly after that, there was a sense of nervousness and uncomfortable, in a sense of a huge uncomfortable feeling inside of me. And the feeling had came from, I knew for a fact I wasn't prepared. When I was in high school or college, I had been squatting 870 pounds. I was benching 460. I had been hang cleaning 375. I was very, very strong, very agile as an 18-year-old kid, and I was a fraction of that when I actually went to the NFL. I was nothing of that nature. And so when I went out there, I knew from the first week it was over. I was going out there, I was running, I was getting hit, I was being hurt a little bit more. Nobody tells you that when you take prescription pain pills that it basically messes with your sensory, your sensors or whatever it is. And it basically, it doesn't allow your pain receptors to take as much pain as you used to take. You know what I'm saying? So when you see a lot of these guys in the NFL, if they were like very aggressive in college and they happen to go to the NFL, they become a little bit weaker or a little bit more timid and running the football or catching the football. A lot of that stuff is coming from guys taking prescription pain pills, and these things messing with your pain receptors, and you basically not being able to recover and get hit like that. That's the truth of the matter. And so what actually happened with me was the same thing. I started to break down. My body couldn't recover very well. My hamstrings would break down, and all of the junk that I was putting inside my body basically affected me, and basically it diminished my skills. So midway through camp, Coach Shanahan calls me over. He said, hey, Maurice, I'm seeing different spurts. I'm seeing you'll have 2 good practices, then you have 3 bad ones. You'll have 3 great practices, you'll have 2 bad ones. And he says, we understand that you've been through a lot before you came here. Can you please sit down with the sports psychologist? We would like to basically put you on a practice squad for the first year, but basically groom you to be a professional. And so when he said it to me, I didn't understand it. It hurt my ego to say that I basically will be sitting on the bench, right? He was like, hey, Maurice, just sit on the bench, sit on the side, let us groom you and grow you to be a professional. My ego wouldn't allow me to basically sit on the bench. I said, nah, coach, I don't need this sports psychologist. Where I'm from, we don't really talk about our problems. If I have a problem, I go on the field. I can be aggressive. I deal with it in the physical nature, but this lady can't help me. I was naive to the fact that you can actually work through your problems. So we end up going through training camp. I get to the preseason, and we're getting ready to play the Indianapolis Colts. And right before we play the Colts, he calls me in again. He said, hey, Maurice, you're getting better in camp, but you're still inconsistent. I think I can help you out. Can you please sit down with the lady? Can you have her help you out? She'll help you work through these issues that you have. You're isolated. You're not socialized with anybody. Can you please let us help you out? And so I was like, nah, coach. In my mind, I thought I was a gangster. I was a gangster to play football. That's what I thought about myself. And so I was like, nah, coach, don't worry about it. I got it. No problem. I'll go out here and I'll perform very well. So we go out, we play the Indianapolis Colts, and after the game, I went back to the room, and so I'm thinking like, hey, I'm just going to come to practice the next day, watch film, and everything will be all right. Lo and behold, I got a call. I got a call from basically like the Grim Reaper of football. Every team has a man who cuts people. He goes around. If you get a call from him, it's over. Pack your bags, it's time to go home. So he called me. He said, hey, Maurice, basically you're being let go from the team, but before you're let go, come and bring all your things, but Coach Shanahan wants to talk to you. So I go over to Coach Shanahan, and he says, Maurice, I don't know what it is. You could have made the team. You could have done everything here. We took a chance on you, but basically you didn't want any of our help. And so in saying that, there's nothing I can do for you. So basically I went back out to California, and something didn't feel right. I remember getting back out there and going to a party the same night I landed on the plane. And I remember being in a party, and I'm sitting on the second story. I can remember looking outside on Sunset, and as I'm sitting there, I felt like different. I didn't feel connected to the party. I had been drinking. I didn't feel intoxicated. It was just like I was alone by myself. I said, man, this doesn't feel right. And I said, I'm not from L.A. I'm from Ohio. I'm from Youngstown. I'm from a blue-collar environment. I'm from a hard-working place. I come from that. Like, how do I get back to that? And so I called Coach Trussell, and I hadn't talked to Coach Trussell for 2.5 years. And I said, trust, man, I'm lost right now. I said, for the past 2 years, man, I've been lost. I'm confused. I don't know what's going on in my life. Can you please help me out? Like, help me recenter myself to basically get myself going back in the right direction. So he said, come back to Ohio, let me help you out, let me put you back into a system that'll basically help you succeed. So I come back to Ohio, and I met with him, and he basically gave me 2 instructions. He said, Reese, while you're back here, can you please re-enroll in school, finish up some coursework during the fall, and when you re-enroll in school, after you re-enroll in school and get yourself back in better shape, I'll send you over to NFL Europe in December. So I come back to Ohio. At the time, Ashley, they're down in the basement with the ladies I just heard, but my family's here. I got a little girl and my lady. I don't know where they at. Well, they're down in the basement. I heard, right? Whatever. But I came back to Ohio. I was talking to I was talking to Coach Trust. He gave me instructions, but I actually followed the second instruction. I started to get in shape and get my body back together, but I never went to re-enroll in school. And he wanted me to re-enroll in school because obviously he wanted me to basically put something on my mind and to actually make myself into a professional of some sorts outside of football, but I had no interest. And for me, having no interest, it left a lot of free time for me at home. And like they say, an idle mind is the devil's playground. And so I would play the video game after I would go train, but I would become bored. So for me becoming bored, I would just basically start to hit up my old friends. Hey, what are you doing? What's going on? Hey, what's going on? I'm back in town. And it started off, hey, let's go watch the game at the bar. Let's go to the pool hall. Let's go to the bowling alley. And all of these things basically were taking place after 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And basically took myself from what was happening on in Trussell's life and all the training and the path and the plan that he put in place, and I basically jumped right back into the streets. And I basically believe that a lot of the street stuff came from me basically being depressed about myself. I was mad at my life, so I projected everything that I had up on my life on everybody else. I hated myself, I hated my world, and so I was just angry towards everybody else. And essentially that's what resulted into me catching a robbery case in 2005, New Year's Eve. So I catch the robbery case in 2005. 3 weeks after that, I actually found out that Ashley was pregnant. So now I'm dealing with a pregnancy. I'm dealing with being kicked out of college, kicked out of NFL, dealing with a pregnancy, and dealing with basically being lost. For the whole 2006, I was just lost, kind of floating through life. And the big arrest came. August had came around. It was a few days before court. I was drinking. I basically came down to Columbus. So when I came down to Columbus, I was trying to get off on Bryce Road. If anybody is familiar with Columbus, I actually got off on the wrong exit when I was coming down. And so when I get off on the wrong exit, I come to the stoplight, and I'm saying to myself, like, it's 3 in the morning. There's nobody out here. I'll go ahead and make a U-turn and basically get to where I'm going. So I make a U-turn in the middle of the street, and there was a police officer who was sitting inside of a Home Depot parking lot. And so in the middle of my turn, he puts on his lights. He's coming out the parking lot. I'm making a U-turn. I'm thinking to myself, like, man, this is not about to end well. For anybody who's seen me, I had a bunch of guns. So I know at some point I'm going to jail. So I said, hey, I have to think of an escape plan, like a bright idea. And so for no reason at all, I don't know why I thought about it, but everybody remember the show Cops? I'm pretty sure Cops, everybody remember that? And so for some reason or another, I thought about an episode where I seen a guy pull over. He had a police officer pull behind him, and when the police officer walked up to the car, he pulled off like trying to get a head start, right? And so I thought it would work. And so I pull over, he pulls behind me, he gets out the car, he walks up on the car, and I pull off. So, boom, get ready to go. So I'm going, he's running back to his car. I'm understanding he's calling back up, but I'm thinking like, man, this is about to get very intense. And so I turn on the freeway, I get maybe a half a mile down the road, and he's right behind me. And he's right behind me because I'm trying to get away in a Hyundai. You know what I'm saying? Right? Hyundai's not the getaway car, right? True story, right? So I'm going down the freeway, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, this is going to end very well. It's a Hyundai Santa Fe, not the getaway car, right? So I'm going down the freeway, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, this is about to end very bad. I'm going. I have a gun on the seat. I have a gun on me. I have a bulletproof vest on me. Like, there's no way to get out of this situation. So I'm going down the freeway as fast as I can, and I'm from Youngstown. I don't know how many people have been to Youngstown, but Youngstown is a city. And so I'm going to a town called Pataskala. And Pataskala is very rural. And so I'm pretty sure y'all can understand I'm a brother. I don't really do the woods. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm thinking to myself, like, I always say brothers don't do the woods. Caucasians don't do the hoods, right? We can laugh in church, right? So I'm thinking to myself, I got to go ahead and put myself in a favorable position. I got to get in the city, right? So I make a U-turn, and basically I'm coming back towards the inner city, and there was a gentleman sitting inside the middle of the road at the time with spike strips. I didn't realize there were spike strips at the time. So I'm coming back to Columbus, and he throw out the spike strips. Boom, they bust the tires. You get like the gravel kicking up. You had sparks flying out the engine. You had smoke coming through the dash. And at this time, I'm like basically becoming like suicidal. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, you know what? I'll just get out the car. I'm talking to my mother on the phone. I'm talking to my mother in Ashton. I'm pretty sure you've seen it on the film. And I said, man, I'm about to get out of the car and have a shootout with the police because they'll kill me, and I'm totally fine with that. You know, my life was that low at that moment. And just basically, I was like, hey, man, I'd just rather die. You know, for the last 3 or 4 years, I've just been making every wrong choice, every wrong decision. And it was like, man, I was just ready to die at the moment. This was 2006, August 9th. I was just ready to give it all up. And so they always talk about, God's grace and divine intervention. I think like this was one of those moments. My mother said something to me. I don't know what she actually said, but essentially I pulled over to the side of the road. They pulled me out the car, essentially threw me on the ground, roughed me up, and basically took me to the county jail. And so I get to the county jail, and this is kind of like where everything stops. You know, there was no more football. There was no more going out. There was no more partying. There was no more vacationing. There was no more hide behind your stress. There was no more let me go to the store, or let me go to the weed man, or let me go to the pill guy, or let me go to any of these guys to basically hide your problems. Basically put me inside of a cell, and essentially all I had was myself. I had 2 pair of underwear, 2 t-shirts, a toilet that you basically urinate in and defecate in, and that was it. You know what I'm saying? And they actually placed me on the 3rd floor, and I was actually locked down for 23 hours out the day. You know, you had 20 minutes to go take a shower, another 20 minutes to basically use the telephone, another 20 minutes to go from one cage to another cage to basically work out. They had a pull-up bar and a little push-up bar, and basically that was it. And so from a person who was used to moving around and going everywhere and hiding from things and being so busy, it was basically like a hard-hitting moment. You know, you have to stay still. And I didn't realize it at the time, but basically they forced me to stay inside of isolation for 7 months. So for 7 months, I'm locked down for 23 hours out the day, basically just sitting on a bunk, you know, not going anywhere. But in that time, you know, I was just kind of reflecting, like, you know, how did I get to this place? You know, how did I put myself in this situation? How did I go from Mr. Everything and Mr. So Much Potential to put myself in a situation where I'm about to go to prison, and I threw everything away? And to be honest with you, I really didn't understand it. You know, I couldn't understand it for the life of me. You know, I didn't understand why I liked everything growing up, like all the nonsense and the craziness, and I didn't understand how I got a rush out of that. But in the process of that, I would receive letters from people and miscellaneous daily breads and things to read when I was initially in there. But it was one thing that a gentleman had gave to me that essentially had changed the course of my life at that moment. And a gentleman gave me a book by a man by the name of James Allen. It was called As a Man Thinketh. It was the first book I ever read in my life. And so it was like a small 60-page read, and essentially I never knew in my life that thoughts were things. I never knew that basically the things that you think about essentially create the life that you live. And the more I read this book, I read the book 9, 10, 11, 12 times during the 7 months. The more I read the book, the more I realized that every situation I had put myself in, that basically I created with my mind. So as a man thinketh, so shall he become. I thought I was a gangster, so I did gangster things. I thought I was a fool, so I did foolish things. Everything started with basically the things that started off in my mind and basically manifested into all of my behavior. And a book sort of crystallized the whole thought dynamic and how thoughts basically come into reality. So I went to prison, and I got sentenced to 7.5 years. I had an opportunity to get out after 3.5 years if my behavior was well. And I basically got blessed in a way. There was a gentleman from Africa. He was the warden of the prison. His name was Mr. Kelikante. And Mr. Kelikante actually took me the first day. He brought me into central office, and he said, man, you know, you can come back here. And what he said was actually, he said, this place can be a university for wise men, or it can be a graveyard for fools. He said, you can do anything you want here. But he said, I have a son, and he's your age, and if he was in this exact situation, I want somebody to help him out. So he said, I'm going to give you every program that you can possibly get in here, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to get yourself together. And so contrary to popular belief, a lot of people believe that prison is just working out and guys with muscles and criminal activity and foolishness, but a large part of prison is rehabilitation. You know, the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. And essentially, they put you in coursework to basically essentially help to change your thinking or help to unroot or renovate your mind. Essentially, he put me in classes like Thinking for a Change, Responsible Adult Culture, Cage Your Rage, just different things to control your anger, different parenting class, different cultural classes, and my mind started to open up. I also got blessed again by receiving a catalog called Bargain Books, and Bargain Books essentially changed my life. Bargain Books essentially was a catalog where you can order books for about a third of the price. And I would have miscellaneous people, Buckeye fans, just sending me $20 here, $40 here, $60 here. Instead of taking the money and buying food, I would just start to buy books. I was like, basically, I don't have nothing on my mind and nothing on my brain other than football. So I need to learn something else when I get out of here, because when I get out of here, I'll be 31. So I started to read. I started getting an attraction for business, attraction for spirituality stuff, and I had a fascination, believe it or not, with Warren Buffett. So I was like, who is the greatest guy to study from? When I was in football, I studied from Walter Payton because I thought Walter Payton was the best. And I said, in business, who do you want to be like? And basically teach yourself or self-educate yourself about somebody who's great if you want to be great. So I read any and everything I can do about value investing. I taught myself, or I learned about accounting. I learned about economics, micro and macro. And I would just read all this information. I actually re-enrolled at Ohio University, started acing all the coursework and knocking this stuff out, and just basically becoming a better individual. I would do my own self-book reports. When I was in prison, I started to write a whole bunch just because I had so many thoughts in my head and so many things I was discovering about myself that basically I just thought I was like basically a beautiful person or a better person than I was than when I initially came in. I started teaching more coursework, started mentoring some of the young guys in the pod, and basically became a model inmate. And essentially after 3.5 years, or after 4 years, 3 years and 11 months, they let me out of prison. So when they let me out of prison, I was like, hey, I'm going to come out of prison. I'm going to put me together a spring football league in Ohio. That's how I basically take care of myself. I know football like the back of my hand. I might have got kicked out very early, but I know football like anything. That's what I studied my whole life. And so essentially I got out of prison. I went back to Ohio State. I started rocking and rolling there. I was acing the coursework, determined to basically, hey, I'm just going to graduate, get my degree, move on with my life, and basically handle business. So what actually happened was I was in the weight room one day, and Coach Trussell came to me. He said, hey, Maurice, there's a league out of Omaha, Nebraska, or a team out of Omaha, Nebraska, who would like to basically see if you can play football. And so I said, Truss, I haven't played football in years. I was 212 pounds at the time. I'm not even the same guy. I was eating tuna fish and 1,500 calories a day. I wasn't used to lifting weights and getting hit and all that stuff. I was over it, right? And so I essentially went back out there because I was broke. I had no money. So I went to go play football for the sole purpose of just basically putting some money in my pocket, being able to take care of my family, and I had a great time doing it. But I tell you this, I remember the first time I got hit, when I got out of prison, I was like, man, I don't see how people do this for a living. I was just so over just getting hit by people, right? And so essentially I was out there. We played a season, and the second season actually when everything started to transition in my life. So I decided to stay with my family in Omaha, Nebraska. I didn't want to come back to Ohio because Omaha was very simple. It was very simple. It was like the most American place I had seen. Every mom and pop and people were just so nice. It was just like a beautiful town with beautiful people, and I actually enjoyed the simplicity of it. So when I was out there, a few things happened. I actually started a spring football league in Omaha, Nebraska. I started doing coaching clinics on the weekend with youth league coaches, and I started doing basically teachings with kids for football. We went from 25 kids to 75 to 125 and essentially to 380 kids. We were rocking and rolling. I had about 7 full-time employees. I had about 30 people who basically ran the staff, and we were rocking and rolling with these kids. But also in the meantime of doing that, I went to a football field one day, and there was a guy with me named Matt Overton. He's currently the long snapper for the Indianapolis Colts. And so we went one day, and as I was recruiting the kids to come into the football league, there was a guy by the name of Todd Doxson. And Todd Doxson, I didn't know at the time, was Pastor Todd Doxson. He was like, hey, Maurice, I see you out here trying to teach these kids football. I used to play football. Actually, I was a receiver. Kurt Warner was my actual quarterback at the time when we were playing for the Iowa Barnstormers or whatever he was saying. And he said, I grew up in Omaha, but I actually have a church at the high school down the street. So I was like, all right, cool. I've never been to church. I read from Proverbs, Ecclesiastics, and Psalms when I was in prison, but I don't really understand, religion and the Bible and things of that nature. So he said, hey, won't you come down whenever you get a chance, just basically come to the church. So as fate would have it, I remember I was going to work out, and I seen the guy in actually a local gym. And so I'm in the gym, the pastor lifting weights, I'm lifting weights, we're getting on the treadmill, we happen to be by each other. He just running and jogging and talking about how good God is, and, we were just having a good time, right? So then when we get down to the locker room, it was like basically a crazy situation that happened to me, right? And so he would get down to the locker room, he'd come over to me, and I'm sitting down, I'm, getting ready to get into the shower, but he come over to me, he start talking about Jesus, right? And so he going on for like 2 or 3 minutes, right? But I'm like, yo, pastor, I just got out of prison, you can't be sitting here talking to me naked. Like, just like uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like, can't talk to the naked pastor. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, my man, chill, right? And so he didn't take any offense to it, but he got what I was saying. Like, yo, just like, yeah, boundaries. You know what I'm saying? I got a couple of jokes. Right? That's a true story. But essentially what happened after that, I said, hey, Pastor, I'm not really sure about the church, but I said, hey, I have some questions. When I got out of prison, my daughter was 4 years old. And so I remember Ashley would go off to work, and I would sit there, and she would come from school, and I'd be like sitting there like, hey, how you doing? Like, like we had no connection with each other. And, I'll turn on the Disney Channel, and I was like, okay, are you hungry? Do you want a snack? I had no parenting skills at all. Like the furthest thing I would do would basically, I want to go to Chuck E. Cheese. I had no idea of how to do anything else. And so I felt very uncomfortable in that regard. So I asked him, I said, hey, man, how do you parent a kid? It was very embarrassing, but it took a lot of me to ask, like, how do you parent somebody? I don't know. I just came from prison where you had to be tough all day. Like, I just don't know how to be sensitive towards a kid and their needs and things of that nature. And so we start meeting every Wednesday, and he was like, if we're going to meet every Wednesday, I basically have to teach you about the Lord. So essentially, he gave me a small book. I still have it to this day. It's a book on one-on-one discipleship. And the discipleship, it had different coursework for about 8 or 9 weeks that we would come weekly and just basically go through. And it was basically teaching me about the Word. It was teaching me about salvation. It was teaching me why Christ gave his life. Excuse me. It was essentially telling me why Christ died on the cross. And he actually gave us a mission in the process of all that. He said, hey, I need you to understand that basically you're a servant of the people. He said, pick something for the next 30 days. You, Andrew Brewer, and Matthew Overton and myself, we decided to go to a local Salvation Army and basically help to tutor kids with who had come from Africa and actually come from Mexico and couldn't understand English, didn't know math, didn't know anything. And these were the things that we actually did to basically show like some level of servanthood. Andrew Brewer, just as a story, he actually went out there and basically became homeless for 30 days, which was crazy to me. I never become homeless. I just basically came from prison. I was homeless enough for me. I was cool with that, right? And so, the next thing I know, I think through the act of basically being a servant and actually being selfless and basically being inside the church and going to the Bible study groups, it essentially helped me to gravitate to give my life to the Lord. It was July of 2012 at this time. So I kept on going to the Bible studies, kept on learning, kept on reading, and my life was kind of in a groove. It was actually a cool story. I love to share it because everybody share with me when they see me. They say, hey, I remember when you stripped the ball. And I want to say, hey, how many times I heard that story in my life? But I want to just basically tell you about a cool story to me, right? So when I was actually in Omaha, Nebraska, I went out to our coach in our second year. His actual name was Joe Moglia. And Joe Moglia essentially was a financial advisor for TD Ameritrade for 7 years. He made about $400 or $500 million, and he wanted to basically become a football coach out of all things. I was like, you're crazy, right? So he leaves the financial world. He comes to be our football coach, and on a weekly basis, he used to hold these financial classes, right? If you're a football player, you want to learn what to do with your finances, come and meet me every Wednesday. So after every Wednesday, me and another guy would basically show up. Me and another guy, I forget his name. He went to Brown. He was a punter. So after a while, he said, hey, Maurice, everybody here has come from, everybody here has come from the NFL, or everybody here has come from college. You've come from prison. Can you meet me at the golf course? So I'm like, all right, cool, let's go to the golf course. I can't golf, but, we can talk and eat, you know what I'm saying? And so I went to the golf course, and as we were sitting down talking, he said, tell me about your life. So I told him about my life, my fascination with Warren Buffett, my fascination with finances, and my fascination with business. And I said, it's not a structured education, but I love to read. I love to educate myself. And so he said, I can basically help you out and do you a favor. I don't know if it's going to come or be true, but basically me, Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates are friends. And so I'm thinking to him, like, for real? That's like cool, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, do you know Warren actually lives here in town? So I'm thinking like, yeah, I know, I read about the man's life. And so he said, I'm going to see if Warren can meet you. So I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. So I'm walking through my apartment on a Wednesday, and I get my phone ring. He said, hey, can I speak to Maurice Clarett? I say, speak. And he said, hey, this is Warren Buffett. And so I look at the phone, I look at my girl, I say, what? I'm pumped up, right? And I'm like, Warren Buffett. I'm like, yo, for those who don't know, it's like the first, second richest man in the world. I just was like loving it, right? And so she like, I don't care. And I was like, well, you don't care, but I care, right? And so he said, do you have anything going on Saturday? And I'm a jokester. I said, man, if I do, it's canceled. Don't worry about it. They understand. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, man, I'll be there, don't worry about it, man, I love you. And I try to get all these words in 2 seconds, and then I hung up the phone. But then I do something that black people do, right? And so I called him back and I said, hey, man, do you mind if I invite somebody so they can witness this? This is like a special moment, you know what I'm saying? We good for inviting extra people. So I said, my family got to come. This is like a monumental moment. Won't nobody believe me, you know what I'm saying? And so I get down there and I actually think that I'm going just to take a picture. I'm thinking like I'm going to take a picture. This would be like the highlight of my life. But he said, hey, do you want to come down and talk to me? And I said, yeah, I want to come and talk to you. You know what I'm saying? This is a cool moment. And so next thing I know, 4 hours later, after sitting down talking to him one-on-one, I was like, man, this is a cool experience, but you have something better to do with your life than talk to Maurice Clarett. And I basically got up and left. And so it was like a cool experience to me, showed me what education can do to me, showed me how just educating yourself, you can put yourself in different opportunities. I was 18 months out of prison. I had a chance to sit down with this guy for 4 hours. It was a crazy moment. But essentially after that, I actually got kicked out of Omaha. The league that I was playing in had shut down, and I was on probation. And the agreement between the Department of Probation for Nebraska and the Department of Probation for Ohio forced me to leave because the football league was no longer in play. So I came back to Ohio, and I'm thinking to myself, like, hey, I'll come back here. I'll create a spring football in Ohio. I'll do it in Cleveland. I'll do it in Toledo. I'll do it in Columbus. I'll do it everywhere. Everybody knows me for football. I'm teaching personal development. We're going to get better. We're going to beat those Southern teams. I'm thinking like that's how my life is going to go. But that's not actually what happened. In the course of coming back, I had a gentleman reach out to me. He said, hey, we would like to do a 30 for 30 on you. And at this time, I didn't know what a 30 for 30 was. He said, basically, we want to tell a story about your life and basically all the things that happened. I said, I have no motivation to talk about anything football. There's a lot of things that happened in my life other than football along the way. I would like to talk about the relationships and the people in that. And so we started to shoot the film, and after we shot the film, Coach Trussell, believe it or not, wasn't even supposed to be involved. He didn't want anything to do with it. But I said, Coach Trussell, these guys are not talking about football. They're talking about life, relationships, and basically how these things play out over a period of time. If you go back and watch the film, actually it's more about relationships than anything else, and how they play out in your life. And essentially, Coach Trussell essentially agreed to do it, and we shot the film. The film had came out, and I woke up one day teaching football and teaching camps, and the next day I woke up with 1,100 emails. And I basically went from 0 to 1,000 very quick again, the same way it happened my freshman year. And I had people from all over the country requesting me to come and speak at different various venues and share different parts of my life and share my different truths. And I had basically traveled everywhere. I went from Ohio State, Notre Dame, Tennessee, went out to Arizona, went to Texas, went to Florida State, I went to California, I went to Denver, I went to everything Ohio. I've seen every part of Ohio. I've probably been to all 88 counties, I promise you. I've seen everything in Pennsylvania, and I just started to travel the world. The last 2 years, and I only know it because I paid taxes. I've probably been to like 200 cities. Every week I was somewhere else. And life just kind of got crazy again very, very fast. But in the meantime, with that, I was able to do a bunch of cool things. I started a youth group back home, and we're actually revamping it, and we'll relaunch it again in July. July is actually our second launch date. Able to give, my first year out, I was able to give away over 700 pair of cleats to underprivileged kids, about 500 helmets, able to provide finances for people who couldn't afford to get their kids back and forth, back in the Youngstown area, back for gas money. I was able to lend my voice and lend my hand inside of, I was able to lend my voice and my hand and my resources and support other people's nonprofit organizations. I was also able to start a few different companies of mine. I actually have a transportation service. I have a packaging service. I have 11 vehicles. We do a lot of last mile delivery stuff. We deliver a lot of products for Staples and Office Depot and Cardinal Health. I do packaging where I sell stretch film and shrink wrap and strapping and corrugated stuff to Cardinal Health. I have a salon, just basically a barbershop. I call it a salon, whatever you want to call it. And basically everything that I have basically generated through speaking, I started a life for myself. The businesses that I basically wanted to do when I was in prison, I basically got into real business and basically started to move my life forward. And as everybody know, trying to be successful, you can drive yourself crazy sometimes, and I'm not ashamed of anything that recently took place in my life. And at times you can get away from basically what got you in the space. When I was climbing and going and looking to be successful, I was going to church every weekend. I was going to Bible studies every weekend. I was reading every day. But the more I started to travel, the more successful I started to become. I started to get away from those principal things that got me in that space. You know what I'm saying? And recently I had a running art incident. I'm pretty sure everybody has seen on national TV. And it was a result of that. You know, it was a result of me getting away from the principal things that kind of took me into that space. And I publicly apologize to everybody who had looked up to me, everybody who had been a part of me and supported me inside of my journey. But it doesn't discredit anything that I've tried to do. You know, my heart's in the right place. I try to help these kids, but at the end of the day, I'm a human being like everybody else. I have stress like everybody else, and at times I don't make the appropriate decisions every time. You know, and that's the battle within myself to always stay on the right road, to always keep balance in my life, to basically keep on moving forward. But you know, since that day, I got back in the groove, got back to get myself up at 4 in the morning, back to working out early in the morning, back to reading the word, back to having Bible study every day with one of my guys, Simon Aries, over the telephone, basically getting back into the groove, you know. But my life is a life of just trial and error. You know, I've done a lot of good things. I've done some things that I'm not so proud of. But at the end of the day, I don't get too down on myself. I don't give up. I'm not embarrassed to show my face anywhere. And I keep moving forward. You know, I know where my faith is at. I know where my heart is at. And with that being said, you know, that's my life in a nutshell. But does anybody have any questions? When Jim Tressel in Ohio State had those sanctions, and I called Jim Tressel and tell him anything? Oh no, we chatted on the phone, and I'll leave that private. You know, we had private conversations between us. Um, but I think he knew I was the only person who could probably understand that moment. You know, going through it myself personally. So we did talk and we did chat, but you know, that's life. You know, everybody here know. You know, things don't always play out the way you want them to play out. But you see now he's transcended and coming to a bigger and better place. He's able to be more influential as a college president. Even with the NFL, nobody walks away on their own terms. Very few people. You know, very few people walk away from super successful moments on their own terms. And usually something happens. You know, your time comes, somebody takes your spot. You know, some things happen. And, you know, I was in a situation, you know, something happened. You know, Urban took his spot, and, you know, that's what it was. You know, and, you know, it's life. You know what I mean? But you can't get too down, and you got to keep on motoring through. You know, I mean, I can talk about it in depth, and I can just kind of go through a quick timeline. Um, I was talking to Coach Trussell up here, and I was also talking to, I don't know if y'all know Maverick Carter. Maverick Carter sort of manages LeBron. So I talked to Mav up here, and we were talking. I said, Mav, it's funny how I remember me and LeBron, we were at a party, right? And so we were downtown Cleveland, we're in the party, and I remember, just a quick story, and I get to the point. I remember as a guy came with alcohol, and I decided to drink and partake in it, but LeBron was like, yo, no, not me, I'm cool. I had my guys from back home from Youngstown around me who had been drinking and doing all the foolishness. He had the guys that he still has to him to this day around him. They didn't participate, they didn't allow it to go on. I allowed it to go on. I said, Mav, isn't it funny how things just happen? Look at LeBron, look at Maurice Clarett. You know what I'm saying? Not to say anything bad about myself or diminish myself, but it's funny how the people who I was around, it allowed me to just basically engage in that behavior. You know what I'm saying? I became part of the foolish behavior. When I went to prison, everybody in prison isn't bad. Everybody in prison, you know, you have a lot of guys who've really rehabilitated themselves. And so I hung around a certain crowd in prison, guys who were progressive, guys who wanted to read, guys who wanted to get better, and guys who set goals once they got out of prison. Even when I got out of prison, I was hanging around my family. I was doing all of those things to basically push me in the right space. I was doing a lot of fellowshipping. I was doing all those things to push me in that right space. when I found myself in trouble this last time, I found out that I isolated myself. And I isolated myself because I became the guy who they thought know everything. You know, the TV put me in a position where it's like, hey, you know everything. It's kind of like the pastor. If the pastor sits up here, everybody believes the pastor knows everything, but the pastor doesn't know everything. He's just carrying a word. He's still a person. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you isolate yourself and you believe the things that you know everything, or if you hang around a crowd who isn't progressive or moving forward in life, setting goals for themselves or have healthy habits, like these things are going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And so 100%, I always say, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. I heard it from somebody else and they actually tagged me with it, but it's the truth. You know, you hang around losers, you're going to be a loser. You hang around people who have something going on, they're fruitful, their lives are healthy, they have healthy relationships, they have healthy friends, they're in the bed early, they're getting up early. Those things only produce success. You know, the guy who gets up every day and buzzes his work or does those things to help his community, he's a servant of the community, those things only produce success. You know, and that's why I got back out here rocking and rolling and getting back into that groove because I know it's 100% who you associate yourself with. I wish I had the time. No, I wish I put like this. I enjoy reading. I enjoy writing a bunch. I even talked to John Gordon, and John Gordon is the guy who wrote the book Training Camp. If anybody ever heard about it, if you go on Barnes and Noble, he has a bunch of them. He actually suggested it to me, but if I had the time, like between managing 13 employees, 13 employees, and if you're in the transportation business, it's a headache, and got everybody going everywhere, and I just don't have great managing skills, I'll tell you that, but I wish I had the time to. Oh, what was going through my head in the national championship game? The kids want to know about the sports. They don't care about nothing else. I was lost. I was lost in the moment. You playing sports, you'll get lost in the moment, right? You'll get there and you'll see all these people, but they won't mean nothing to you. And I was lost in the moment. I was actually mesmerized because I was coming to the sideline and it sounds crazy. Do you know who Eddie George is? I have no clue. Crazy, right? So for guys like me and guys like this, most of them, they know who Eddie George was. And so that would be like, who Ezekiel Elliott is? So Ezekiel Elliott Eddie George was that long time ago. And then I was like the next guy. And then you had, a couple other, but Ezekiel Elliott's like that. So like imagine Ezekiel Elliott sitting next to you on the sideline trying to tell you what to do. It'll feel pretty cool, right? So I was feeling like pretty cool, like, I'm just having Eddie George teach me how to run the football, you know what I'm saying? But it was a cool moment, it felt big, it felt illustrious, and it felt great to win. Excuse me, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I know the numbers. It was 3-5, whatever it is. If I had a Bible, I can read it. But I'm pretty sure it's not hard to find a Bible in here, right? But no, I read it because it makes sense. Like I think the vain part of me, I get more out of Ecclesiastics, because it teaches a lot about the worldly wisdom and the things that you can kind of get caught into, and I think that's my life. Growing up, always being attracted to things. Excuse me, just always being attracted to things. I think that it basically defines my life. It helps me to bring structure and perspective in regards to what's going on. I think the Proverbs is like the daily wisdom. Just the daily wisdom to keep you, like, it's no more than you going to the gym and you jogging on a treadmill. I think that's like what Proverbs is for my mind mentally. And me and my guy, like I say, me and my guy, we get on the phone, he probably calling me now, and I owe him about 150 push-ups every time I miss his call for like Bible study. He'll say, man, give me 50 push-ups and let me record you, so I got to sit in the video. So this is a good excuse. I'm going to send him a picture of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was busy. Okay. I don't even think it's a hard conversation. I don't think anybody in here would go to a place and generate, right? Let me break this down to you. First of all, the majority of kids don't get an education. That's a lie. The title of their degree may say financial planning. It may say communications, but the coursework building up to the degree is nonsense. You know, whether you know it or not, a lot of these elite Division I level schools, this is the way the process works. They bring the guy to school. The guy has an assessment test, so they understand his academic profile before he even gets on the campus. They understand he may have cheated to get his ACTs and SATs together. They may understand that he got pushed through high school. They can understand, based on his vocabulary, the way he carries himself, the way he talks to them, that he's not academically prepared to be on a college campus. But this guy can score touchdowns, and he can basically put butts in the seats, right? The majority of these guys that you see are in this situation, right? But the college doesn't want to acknowledge that, you know what I'm saying? Because we're Alabama or whatever, you know, not to single out Alabama, that's the first thing that came to my mind, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, this is serious stuff though, right? So these guys can't read, these guys can't do math, these guys have no skills to actually be on collegiate campuses. And so it's a lie, it's a facade. These guys are here to play football and generate money. Ohio State just signed for $252 million. You know, everywhere else in the world, when you generate money for a company based upon your level of service and based upon your level of importance and based upon your ability of not to be replaced, you generate your income. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to college kids, they try to say these guys are getting educated. That's not the truth. These guys are not. Listen to me. I was in officiating softball. There's nothing that I want to do with softball for the rest of my life. Officiating golf. There's nothing I want to do with golf. You know, African American studies, unless you plan on furthering the research in African American studies, you don't belong in here. But if you go from Oregon to USC to Arizona State to all these campuses, these guys are getting pushed through, and it's a factory. And so you might as well just call it what it is. It's minor league football. You know what I'm saying? And you can pay these guys a fair wage and when nothing happened, okay? These guys want to be professional football players. Since the time that they've been kids, they've not been educated in these failing school districts coming up. So you get pushed through failing school districts. More times than not, you have bad study habits, you have a bad home, you have a bad infrastructure, but you can play football and you're placed on this campus. So it's a larger conversation that people don't want to have, but I believe wholeheartedly, I wouldn't be having this conversation about this if I was able to make myself some money. Essentially, I got into it with an athletic director because I couldn't afford a plane ticket. You know, had I been able to afford a plane ticket home, or had somebody been able to pay for me a plane ticket home, I wouldn't have did it. And for those who don't know, the NCAA didn't come and investigate me. Andy Geiger actually called them on me. You know what I'm saying? So that's a whole different story. But Warren Harding. Senior year, yes. Oh, a lot. Yeah, but I feel like I'm bragging right now. I did have 404 yards, though. Probably won't, never will be. Hopefully not. Oh, they turned it down? Yeah, well, usually when the guy comes up, he said, yo, it's time for you to get off stage. This is like the Sandman. Get off stage, Maurice. But with that being said, I do got to get my dog. Oh, my family's back there in the corner. I can say hi to them. Yeah. But like I say, thank you all. I promise you, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me share my time with you all tonight.
Check. This on. There we go. All right. Hey, Maurice, I don't have my Bible here, and I don't have my phone either, but is Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Is that the one you were thinking of?
He said it for me, right?
All right, sweet, man. Yeah, that is great. Thank you, and God bless you. Thanks. Well, thanks so much for coming tonight. I'm going to close us in prayer, and then Maurice is going to be here if you have anything that you'd like to be signed, or if you'd like to shake his hand and meet Maurice Clarett. So let me go ahead and let's close us in prayer. Oh, and I want to make an announcement. If you want any sausage, we have some leftovers. If you want to take some home with you, it's available down in the gym just for a donation, whatever you want to give. So thanks so much. Let me pray. And dear Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are good. We thank you that you're the loving Heavenly Father who wants to have a relationship with us, who wants to guide us and direct us and teach us and bless our lives like a loving Father does. We thank you that you loved us so much that while we were still sinners, you sent your only begotten Son, Jesus, to die on the cross to forgive us of our sins and to rise again on that third day so that we can believe in him, that whosoever believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. We thank you for Maurice. We pray a continued blessing upon his life and that you would continue to use him to encourage people and to spread the fame of the name of Jesus. Thank you for all the men who were here tonight. Pray that you would bless their faithfulness and bless our fellowship as we do strive in this fallen world. We struggle against the world, the flesh, and the devil. So we need each other. We need you, God. We need Jesus. We need the Holy Spirit. And we need each other as we encourage each other day after day, as long as it's still called today, lest any one of us becomes hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for all the kitchen workers. Thank you for all the men who helped. And please give us traveling mercies on our way home. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.